This dude is bad. He wants a big score, $1 million in cash.
This is a chance, and I want to take it now, before I have to kill somebody.
Hey everybody, welcome to Graphic Tales, the YouTube show for comic book creators, comic book publishers, and comic book readers, and anybody else that wants to just tag along and hear me blabber for 15 minutes. You may learn some things, you may not learn some things, I don't know, but the point of this show is to relay information that I have, that I've gathered over the course of my publishing career since 1987, and to try to pass some things along to you that might be of help if you're, looking to get into the comics field in any form or fashion. Each episode I'll focus on a different aspect of the comic book industry. In the first episode, I talked about how I had to learn how to do everything, with regard to creating comics, because I didn't know anybody who knew anything about it, right? So I was building my company from the ground up, not knowing anything about how to get into the business, how to publish. I worked at a printing company, and I learned a lot there about just what it takes to take something that's on a piece of paper and get it printed in a newspaper or a periodical. So I just, I kept learning everything that I could about every aspect of it, because I didn't have anybody to say, well, here's who you call, here's what you do, here's how you do it. I had to wing it the whole time. So this many, 30, almost 40 years later, I'm still winging it. So, I looked at the number of views on the video, on the first episode, and I realized that probably half of those views are me watching it over and over, looking at what I did, seeing what I did wrong, and trying to figure out how to correct it. Because, as I said, I'm starting from the ground up with this YouTube show. I don't know anything about editing. I don't know anything about audio. I'm winging it. I went out and I bought this mic. I bought a new, a webcam to record this. I'm working on VideoPad software to do the video editing. And I'm also using Audacity to do some of the audio editing. Now, I do have a little bit of experience over the course of, the last 30, 40 years. I have delved into different aspects of video creation. So I know a little bit about, working my way around the controls, but I don't know everything I need to know. So it takes me 10 times longer to do it than it should. But there's a learning curve, and I will figure it out. Like on the first episode, I noticed at the very beginning, it goes black for like 1 second. I'm like, what was that? Well, I'll figure that out. The little plates where I superimposed a picture of a comic cover, I had those on just a black or a white background. Didn't look good, so I'm going to spice it up like this. So by putting a different background in behind that comic book cover, spices it up a little bit. But the same thing that I'm doing here with this YouTube show is the same thing that I've been doing in the comic book industry since 1987. Winging it, problems come, and you have to either give up or fight. And I've always been a fighter, so I fight. And the best way to fight is to figure out who your enemy is and how they operate and how to defeat them. And that means research. So I've had to do a whole lot of reading and a whole lot of watching of videos and, everything I can to try to figure out how to surmount some of these problems and obstacles that come about when you're in the comic book publishing business. Now, many of us, I'm assuming many of you out there who are watching this, might want to be comic book creators. You might want to be publishers. And that's fantastic. That's how I started. But here's a question that you should ask yourself. Why do you want to do it? If you do any reading on the internet, any talking to comic book professionals, go to any comic book convention, go to Artist Alley, talk to someone who's been in the business for 30, 40 years, and they're going to look at you and say, don't do it, kid, because it's a tough business to be in. And it is, especially these days with the internet and the proliferation of webcomics that are free, there's a lot of entertainment out there that people don't have to pay for. So you have to consider that it may be an uphill battle to try to pay the bills by publishing comic books. So why do you want to do it? I don't know. Why did I want to do it? Why did I want to do it? Because I always wanted to. I always have loved comics, but here's the thing. I've always been a creative type. I've always been able to write stories. Not everybody can do that. I've always been able to draw. Not everybody can do that. And something that I see a lot in fandom, it's not just comic fandom, but also, literature and, Star Wars fandom, Star Trek, all of them, all fandoms. People grow up absolutely loving something, and they become an absolute expert in all of the canon involved with that thing. And they want to put their own mark on it by creating stories that are going to expand on that thing that they revere so much. And that's great. The only problem is, you know what? Time for an audio clip.
Wait a minute. All right, it's got to be said. Somebody has got to say it, so it might as well be me.
Okay, so I'm going to say it. Just because you love something doesn't mean you can do it. And I see a lot of frustration out there in Facebook groups with comic book creators. They're frustrated because no one's paying attention to me. No one's buying my book. In many cases, there's a reason for that. And I'm just being honest here. It's because the stuff just isn't good, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of stuff that's just not good. It's fantastic to love, like I said, it's fantastic to love something and to want to contribute to the legacy of the thing that you love. But you need to have the right tools in order to respectfully build upon that. And so there's a lot of people who get into comics because they love comics. For example, comic book retailers. How many comic book stores do you think are run by people who didn't start out as comic book fans? I'm guessing it's probably like 99 point something percent of comic book retail shops are run by comic book fans. So it's the same with indie comics. You see a lot of stuff published that's coming from fandom. And again, it's fantastic to want to contribute. But you also need to grow. You have to be ready to grow, and you have to be hungry, and you have to do all kinds of things to readjust your life and your schedule in order to devote the time needed to become proficient in whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's write or illustrate or ink or letter. You have to put in the work. And I see a lot of people who do that. They put in the time and effort, but it's just not happening for them. Well, don't stop. Just keep doing it. Don't get defeated, or get defeated. I mean, if you want to, get defeated. It's okay. You can give up on comics and do something else. It's a tough market, but you can keep trying, and that's what I did. That first book, in the last episode, I showed you the War Monsters, Daikazu books that I published when I began in '87. They were terrible. They were not good. The first issue, I look back at it and I cringe. But I'm really proud of it, though, because I went out on a limb and I took everything that I knew up to that point and applied it onto those pages of art. And then it was printed, and I looked at it, and all my friends said, "Dude, you're awesome. This is fantastic." In my head, I was going, "No, it's not. This isn't good. I need to get better. I need to fix the things that I did wrong." And so I applied myself. And the second issue looked a little better. And the third issue looked even better. And by issue 4, it was like, didn't even look the same. And that's been the story of my career, Let me show you some examples, okay? Because I'm not proud. I'm going to show you. So here is a page of Daikazu number 1. Now look at a page of some of my more recent work. This was colored by C.C. De La Cruz, who made me look really good. But if you look through those beautiful colors, you're going to see the line work, the black and white art beneath, really, really improved. And of course, that was like 30 years of work that I put into it to get better. So I guess what I'm trying to say is be prepared to fail, because it's really tough. I mean, there are some success stories, you see some headlines like, "Oh, punk kid puts out comic book and sells 100,000 copies." That doesn't really happen too much anymore. Sometimes it does, but there's always backstories to all of those success stories that you see when you see, people on Kickstarter bringing in $500,000-$600,000. Look at my Kickstarters. I bring in maybe $10,000, and I have, if I'm lucky, 200 backers. That's not a lot. It's really not, but it's enough to keep me going. It's enough to make a profit, and I could be doing much better if I expanded. If I took more risks and did more advertising, if I got into agreements with some of these other third-party services that can help you with a Kickstarter, and they say, we're going to help you reach 100,000 more backers and all of that. Those things work, and I have some friends that do use those services on Kickstarter. But keep in mind, they are going to take a cut of what you make, So at this point in my life, I'm happy creating and making up these kooky stories and sharing it with people. And part of this journey is not just for fame and fortune, because I'm still waiting for that, but it's personal enrichment, I'm getting better as a storyteller. I'm getting better as a writer, as an artist. I'm delving into a little bit of color work now, just out of necessity. Sometimes all my colorists that I work with are busy, and I say, you know what? This is simple enough. I can do it myself, Always keep learning, and don't keep your focus. I don't know, this sounds kind of crazy, but don't keep your focus on the one thing you want to do. I alluded to this in the last episode. Devote time to all of the peripherals around that thing that you want to do, because you never know what's going to happen. And one of those side jobs, a little bit about it, a lot about comics, and a little bit about this over here. You never know, because someone might call up and say, "Hey, I need help with this thing that you know a little bit about." And you go, "I'm your person to do it." And then you jump into it. Next thing you know, you've got a whole career in doing whatever that other thing is. So that's, my advice for this episode is keep learning. Don't stop. Don't feel defeated if you don't become successful right out of the gate, because it's very rare that happens. But we're in this for the art, right? We're in this to create. We're in this to tell stories and to entertain people. And for me, that's the most important aspect of it, is I'm making things that are making other people happy. And month after month, they keep coming back and saying, I want some more of that. I want to know what happens to that character next. That's great. I think that's why I do it. And if that's why you're doing it, you're on the right track. So that's it for this week. Next week, we're going to talk about distribution of comics and setting up your own company and how to get your work into the hands of other people. So thanks a lot. Thanks for sitting here and listening to me. And I hope, I've been an inspiration to you. And I'll see you next week.